Archibald Witwicky once said.
No sacrifice, no victory!
And then a few years later, Sam Witwicky said the same thing.
No sacrifice, no victory.
So naturally, in an effort to make the lowest performing Transformers movie ever made, Paramount sacrificed Michael Bay.
Oh, so unwise.
Much like all of the financial shortcomings of big Hollywood productions in recent years, you can't just throw an inexperienced director at a $200 million project and expect to yield the same results as your predecessor. Back when the Res of the Beast trailer dropped, I saw a tweet celebrating the fact that there were no explosions in the trailer, like the internet had just decided that explosions are inherently bad, even though they're in all sorts of popular media.
I think it worked.
Having seen Res of the Beast, I would say that it could have used a couple more explosions and some Michael Bay magic. Transformers seemed to think getting a cheap director, cheap writing crew, and cheap main characters was a good idea. After giving it some thought, I have come up with some reasons why the Bayverse trilogy was far better than this nothing burger of a film, in no particular order of badness. What became painfully clear when our protagonist, Hero Man who steals cars sometimes, sat in a grey Porsche with the Autobot insignia on the steering wheel was that Bumblebee was not going to be our protag Autobot buddy. Film language. Okay. So we want to sell some new toys. Let's introduce a new metal face with an annoying-ass voice. Seriously, why Pete Davidson? The only thing I've liked him in was the Suicide Squad, when he played a brave and selfless hero who sacrificed himself for his team. I get wanting to mix things up, but it's all about the execution, and as we're going to talk about, the execution in this movie was piss. Let's dive into this topic by how our protagonist and Mirage meet each other, and compare that with what came before. In previous installments, we have a version where B and the other Autobots are specifically looking for the main character, Sam. While it was super lucky that the Autobots were looking for Sam in the exact moment in time when he was buying his first car, they had a very specific reason to seek Sam out. Had Sam not been car shopping that day, the Autobots would have contacted him by some other means, but the car shopping was an opportunity to relate to people Sam's age and reach older viewers with nostalgicisms. In the reboot movie, Bumblebee, which is a direct prequel to Rise of the Beasts, our main character finds a broken bee suffering from amnesia, and they go on a nice adventure together to save the world. Now let's talk about Noah. Noah is a young man struggling to get by who can't find a job, and his sick brother needs medicine. That's one way to get your audience sympathetic to the characters right away. Due to Noah's money problems, he decides to commit to a little Grand Theft Auto. This motivated me to do the same thing, as I too am struggling to keep up with groceries 3 times the cost they should be. This failed robbery happens conveniently on the same night a magical teleportation McMuffin the Autobots are looking for lights a giant space beam into the sky that only they can see for some reason. This beacon activates a dormant Mirage, who is the Porsche Noah is trying to steal, and they go on a ridiculous high-speed chase that most certainly got a couple cops killed. Had all this happened any other night, Mirage would have stayed dormant and went along with whatever shenanigans Noah and the stolen car market get up to. When they get to the warehouse to regroup with the other Autobots, Optimus is mad at Mirage for bringing a human with him, and Mirage tells him it's cool that they're boys. My dude, you just met this guy, and he was trying to steal you. Initially, you attempted to keep him locked out of you, but he gets in, and now all of a sudden you're just cool with it? Anyways, they're trying to devise a plan to grab the portal, and Mirage suggests using Noah, who agrees for money. That lines up, I guess. But I just find a teen getting their first car or a young adult fixing up her birthday car more compelling of a story than a protagonist trying to steal a car, especially when the film never addresses the attempted theft as a bad thing. It's all good, man. You just needed the money. They gave him money problems to try and justify the car theft, but guys, you wrote there to be a theft in the first place. You could have written literally anything else. Noah is just a terribly written character. He's down bad, so he robs a car and goes on adventures to save the planet because fuck it, why not? They had like 7 writers for this film, so I'm not sure how the main character's journey was so flat and stupid. Okay, so now we have Mirage as the main Transformer. Why? Why have the previous movie be all about Bumblebee, then give us a different Autobot and main character? All of that character work with Bumblebee and Charlie are just wasted because she's gone and the writers don't want to care about Bee anymore. The sequel makes no sense. Now, when you want to give an awesome character like Bumblebee a back seat, how would you go about it? Of the many options at one's disposal, I would probably give him the same treatment he got in Age of Extinction, when Optimus and Cade were our POV characters, and you still get plenty of Bee, but he isn't the main Transformer eating up screen time. There are a lot of ways to do this, but you wouldn't kill him, would you? Yeah, the creatives behind this movie decided to have the main villain, Scourge, zap the life out of Bumblebee.
I'm tired of little things getting in my way. No!
Right after this happened, my first thought was, hold on, Scourge is OP as fuck, and he has some really powerful weaponry. His opening fight had him absolutely annihilate a huge gorilla transformer in like 3 moves, and blow his whole shoulder off.
Yo, asshole! This motherfucker's dead!
But he just electrocutes Bee so his body is completely intact. I wonder why they would do something like that. Maybe to arbitrarily resurrect him for his trailer shot and give Mirage all of the limelight for the rest of the film? The first thing I googled after the movie before we even got to my car was why they killed Bumblebee. Turns out I was only half right, because part of the reason Stephen Caple Jr. did this was that it made room for other characters. The other point made me even more angry, but we will get to that later in the video because it is part of another major contention I have with this film, and we're not done with Bee yet, so let's continue. After the Autobots and our human planks of wood meet the Maximals, they place Bee on a magic bullshit Energon rock, but say they don't have enough power to use it. I smell a Chekhov's Energon rock. Okay, I am really trying to avoid recapping the whole movie, but I feel like I have to explain some nonsense to really contextualize how fucking stupid Bumblebee's revival is. The main thing in the movie is Unicron wants to eat planets because it's very macro-friendly. He has a ragtag group of Decepticons, consisting of Scourge and 2 others I don't remember. The magical bullshit teleportation device is on Earth, so they want to get it to teleport Unicron to Earth for some brunch. Naturally, the good guys want to stop this from happening. The Autobots and Maximals devise a plan to use a plot equation that only Hero Girl can enter to stop the teleportation thingy. She also gets to follow a path built by Transformers, only big enough for someone human-sized to traverse. But that's besides the point. The plan fails because Scourge blows up the control panel, so Optimus decides to blow the tower, potentially killing himself. The surge from the explosion lights up all the Energon in the vicinity, and it wakes Bee up. Okay. The good guys were really fucking lucky that their main plan didn't work, or Bee would still be a dead, rusting piece of metal on a useless magic rock. Also super lucky, Scourge didn't obliterate his body. This is so stupid. I know what you're thinking. Hey guy, Revenge of the Fallen killed Optimus and brought him back to life, so what's the deal? Well,
I'm not your girlfriend!
and the execution in that movie was better than this for one main reason. The entire plot hinged on Sam following his autism map to the pyramids of Egypt to find the matrix of leadership and shove it in Optimus's chest to bring him back to life, because only a Prime can defeat the Fallen. For some reason. I'm memeing on that movie to really stress how damn stupid Bumblebee's revival is. In Rise of the Beasts, Bee is killed off in a way that should have turned his body into spaghetti, and then resurrected literally by accident. Not figuratively, literally, actually, genuinely, truly by accident. They put Bee on a rock, and blue space goo resurrects him. Michael Bay did it better even during a writer's strike. So yeah, Bee gets a kick-ass comeback action scene, and I kind of enjoyed it, but a lot of the action in this movie just lacked impact. It felt bland and generic, kind of like a lot of current Marvel stuff. They killed off Bumblebee to give Mirage the screen time, just to bring him back and have no permanent consequences. Hey, that kind of feels like Marvel too. And Star Wars.
No one's ever really gone. No one's ever really gone.
I also found Mirage kind of annoying. I don't know if it was because of Pete, or the writing, or both. I just wasn't a fan. This was an insanely lazy or incompetent setup, and payoff that just shouldn't have happened in this movie. I really don't understand dedicating an entire film to B and then wiping all of the human characters and B out of the second movie in the franchise. This movie would have been a lot better if we got Haley Steinfeld and John Cena back and they made a story involving them with Bumblebee. It's almost like having the Iron Man movie, then Captain America's movie, and then Cap comes back after being frozen and dies in the first fight in the Avengers against Loki, so Thor can have more screen time, and then Cap comes back to life through the power of love or something. So yeah, B was handled like piss! So let's move on to talking about my biggest point of criticism. Okay, let's talk about the big guy. The other reason Bumblebee was temporarily killed off, straight from Cable's mouth. I wanted to really dive deeper into Optimus Prime, and so the root of that scenario came from Optimus Prime being a different Prime. He's clapping back at Noah and the humans, and they're not on the same page. It gave us permission to go darker with Optimus in a way, because now he felt this burden and that it was his fault. And so the last person you'd expect to sacrifice anything for humans would be Optimus Prime, at least in this particular film. Now this is a lot to unpack, so let's get started. So you wanted to dive deeper with Prime. All you did was make him a grumpy Prime that doesn't care about humans, and you contrived a reason for him to be acting this way. If this is deep to a professional writer,
You suck!
if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time we're seeing this iteration of Prime outside of a couple lines and action scenes in Bumblebee. Wouldn't it make more sense to give us the altruistic and heroic Prime instead of the disenfranchised and depressed Prime we get in this movie, if you wanted to be more impactful? We have no baseline for your version of Prime, so why would we treat this version of him like he's acting out of character? I was sitting in the theater thinking, well, you sound like Optimus, you look like Optimus, but the words coming out of your mouth remind me of a grumpy douche. This makes me want to take a moment to go back and appreciate the darker moments of Optimus Prime in the Bayverse.
Give me your faith. Not today. Waste of metal. You die! No, Optimus!
And you chose them.
Cable contrived Bumblebee's death to give us this loser Optimus so he can learn how to be a good boy and like humans by the end of the film. This feels like the same thought process that gave us Man of Steel.
Krypton had its chance!
From a meta perspective, we don't really have a lot of hero archetypes coming out in Hollywood right now. We have Rian Johnson's Luke Skywalker, Paramount's John Halo, who lost his virginity to a Covenant spy while his mom watched. Zack Snyder DC characters that have higher body counts than any of their villains. Marvel superheroes that are never seen saving people and more often than not are entitled assholes who get handed everything throughout their films. What's wrong with having a steadfast and competent Optimus Prime who values the lives of his Autobots and humans above all else? This arc was piss. Optimus doesn't give a crap about people or Earth until Optimus Primal shows him he's been a bad boy. Let's flash back to the Bayverse for a moment and speedrun Prime's arc.
Humans don't deserve to live. They deserve to choose for themselves.
He's introduced in a conversation with Sam about the potential destruction of the human race and how they must do everything they can to stop that from happening. After him and Megatron stalemate in their fight, he tries to have Sam put the Allspark in his chest to destroy it and sacrifice himself. But Sam does it to Megatron instead. He was more than willing to sacrifice himself to save the humans.
I will sacrifice myself to destroy it.
The Transformers decide to hang on Earth and keep it safe and create a full-blown alliance with the United States military to hunt down remaining Decepticons. In the second movie, Optimus sacrifices himself to save Sam, and the military go on a crazy mission to hopefully bring him back to life because the human race knows how fucked they are without Prime's leadership during this ongoing war with Decepticons. In the third movie, Optimus is still running operations with the Special Forces unit until the Autobots get banished from Earth, and when the Decepticons start to take over the planet, the Autobots come back and save the day again, working with the military. In the fourth movie, Optimus and the Autobots are being hunted, and he vows to kill the one behind it, even though he's against killing humans. And we don't talk about the last night. In these movies, we get Prime being tested, going darker as time goes on, and maintains his desire to protect people. He never loses his way, and was a way more interesting character because his fundamental beliefs are tested heavily in the third and fourth movie, but he never stopped valuing human life. The handling of Prime in Rise of the Beasts just scream either lazy or incompetent. They had all they needed to tell a good story, but Capel went with the Luke Skywalker, needing to be shown the error of his ways by the new character, and I'm so tired of seeing characters I like get reduced in service of the script. You can have characters star all over the place and either remain static or go on a journey of some kind. Characters don't need to be arbitrarily reduced to go on a journey, and if that is the only way you know how to write,
You suck!
Alright, now let's talk about military portrayal. There was none in this movie. Moving on. No, I'm just playing. One really powerful element Michael Bay had in all of his Transformers movies was the cooperation between our team of Autobots and the military. It was clear that without the Autobots, humanity was fucked, and without the military, the Autobots were fucked. Throughout the movies, our first Transformers scene was a Decepticon destroying an entire military fob in the desert by itself, no issue at all. Later in the films, our military team uses a ton of air support for one small Scorpion Decepticon. The military and Autobots work together to evac the cube before destroying it. The intro to Revenge of the Fallen shows us the Autobots are working together with the Special Forces unit, and again with the military throughout the entire finale. And then The Dark of the Moon has the Autobots and military working in unison throughout the entire film. Now we have Rise of the Beasts, where the military is literally non-existent. Even after our team of Autobots are completely outmatched by the three evil bots, I honestly can't remember if they're referred to as Decepticons, and a team member dies. Are we supposed to believe they stand any sort of chance against those bots, when later they have a massive disposable army of evil little bots falling from the sky? You're telling me 4 Beast Transformers are going to make that much of a difference? Especially when the previous leader Gorilla got turned into stew when Scourge is introduced? You know what would have helped a lot? Maybe John Cena coming in with a strategic military assault? He was already introduced in Bumblebee, and ended that film respecting him. It would have made perfect sense to have him and his team in the film. Kind of like the Bayverse movies when Lennox was always there to help blow shit up. I like the military characters being portrayed as smart and competent, rather than retarded and useless, which has become such a common trope these days. Contrast all of this with Rise of the Beasts. Like I said, it's just the Autobots fighting a disposable CGI army in a bland gray setting. You'd think the Autobots could use some assistance from local governments, but nah, they can handle this themselves. In all of the Michael Bay fights, there is a sort of tug of war going on between the enemy combatants and the good guys. You see the good guys start to win, and then the Decepticons push back, and then the Autobots push back, eventually winning. The third movie executed this pretty well in the finale. Humanity is starting to look pretty screwed by the end of that movie, when Shockwave is still alive, you have Sentinel Prime, who's super OP, Megatron's still kind of chilling out somewhere, and they have a rather large army of Decepticons at their disposal. Also, all of the Autobots get captured. The way they get out of that predicament is the military working with a demo team and also parachuting in while snipers are shooting the Decepticons in the eyeballs. The humans are attacking a group of Decepticons from 3 main points, and the final battle ensues. Optimus shows up and lays waste to a ton of Decepticons, kills Shockwave, and blows up the main pillar. It doesn't really make sense to have the Autobots able to defeat the Decepticons without the help of the military, and it doesn't really make sense to have the military defeat the Decepticons without the help of the Autobots. You would expect in a lot of these big blockbuster action movies that have world-ending events that the military would play a bigger role in stopping the destruction of our planet. This felt suspiciously like the MCU. In reference to the lack of military help, in the end of Infinity War and Endgame, why the hell were world governments not throwing thousands of military personnel at the massive CGI armies that were intent on ending the world? Where were they here in Rise of the Beasts, in this vast gray landscape covered in disposable CGI robot monsters? The world is about to get eaten, and no one wants to help out. In regards to Marvel, let's talk about Iron Man. I'm sorry, I mean Noah. Noah's Iron Man suit. Nothing in this movie felt more Marvel than the climactic ending. I know the Transformers suit is a lore thing, but this suit doesn't work here. I hate it when characters can get new superpowers and just become a fucking boss at it with no practice. I don't believe you, film. How funny would it have been if Noah had no idea how to operate the suit, and when Scourge shot right here, he just blasted his head off? Where did this suit come from? Oh, Mirage. Mirage gets his ass kicked by Scourge, naturally. Then Mirage gives Noah a little Iron Man suit made from his body. The body that just got its ass kicked by the big bad. And now Noah is supposed to provide combat support for Optimus, who stood zero chance against Scourge. What is Noah going to do to help him? I feel like his blast would just tickle him. This ending was embarrassing. Speaking of the CGI monsters in this movie, Bayverse CGI was far better than this film. Let me explain. A lot of the landscape shots in this Rise of the Beast movie were shot on CGI, where Michael Bay would actually go to location. And in doing so, Michael Bay was allowed to put a lot of the CGI budget into the actual Transformers themselves, which is why the Transformers from over a decade ago still hold up and look insanely detailed to this day. The Transformers in Rise of the Beast look pretty rubbery, while the Bayverse CGI Transformers look metallic, real, and like what they're doing has an actual effect on the world. I mean, just look at this transformation from Optimus Prime in the first movie. Now look at this transformation of Optimus in Rise of the Beast. I don't know, man. I know this is super subjective, but pick one. I know which one I'm going with. One of my favorite looking Transformers in this entire trilogy was Shockwave. The amount of detail that went into this guy was nuts. And he was a super edgy boy. And I can get down with a little bit of edge here and there. I remember a lot of random Decepticons that died fighting the Autobots because they were very detailed and cool. People shit on Bay, but he clearly cares about making his work look unique. Until I was going through this movie to get the clips I needed for this video, I couldn't tell you a fucking thing about Scourge's companions. I forgot what abilities they had, what color they were, or what their voices sounded like. I tell you what, man, Shockwave was fucking cool and had an insane amount of detail. His giant metal worm that loves eating buildings also had incredible detail, and this was over a decade ago. All in all, this film is what you get when you Michael Bay worse than Michael Bay. This is a very broad meta point regarding this movie and the direction this franchise is going. Michael Bay does not deserve the hate he gets, especially when we have directors like Zack Snyder, who is the edgiest of edgelords, being praised for how smart his DC movies are, or Rian Johnson being regarded as an intellectual. Michael Bay is a very self-aware director and nails action way better than the previously mentioned ones. And his initial Transformers trilogy is better than Rise of the Beast. At the moment, I would say Revenge of the Fallen is even better than this film, but I would have to do a deep dive into both of them to know for sure. Rise of the Beast is what you get when you're Michael Bay, and you're not Michael Bay. We have a plot riddled in contrivances, bombastic action scenes with worse cinematography and weaker characters than the ones before. So basically, we have all the same issues people complained about in the Bayverse, with none of the positives. Not to name all of them, but the contrivances in this film are busting out at the seams. The way Noah and Mirage meet, how it happened on the same night the space beam lit up, how Noah and the museum girl survived the creepy spider monsters, how Scourge decided to kill Bumblebee without any physical damage, how the museum girl just magically understands alien tech language because she's so mega smart, how Optimus gets his ass kicked in the first fight with Scourge, holds his own in the second, and wins in the third. The power levels are not consistent in this movie at all. When the power levels are inconsistent, there are no stakes. I know Optimus is going to beat Scourge in the third fight because it's the finale and Optimus isn't going to get killed by Scourge. Having him lose to him in the first fight so easily does absolutely nothing to the viewer because we don't know who either of these characters are. Optimus says,
Impossible.
and Scourge just laughs at him.
I enjoy that look of confusion when an inferior being meets a higher power.
But none of this means anything to me. You haven't told me what their power sets are. You haven't given me a reason to think that Optimus or Scourge would be stronger than one another, because I can't go into this film basing it off of anything from the Bayverse. And how Bumblebee is brought back to life pisses me off more than the rest of them. Alright. I don't think I can stand talking about this movie much longer, so thank you for watching.
I can't go on. Tank's empty, bro.